Hi everyone, thanks for joining in today's webinar. My name is Francis Desrochers. I'm co-founder here at helloDarwin. I'm joined today by two of my great colleagues, Vincent and Samuel. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing great. Thanks,
Very excited.
Nice, awesome, as I am. Good, so you guys are connecting with business owners and business leaders in general on a daily basis. You're doing roadmaps, you're assessing their eligibility, etc. So you guys are walking us through the different programs, incentives for today's webinar. And we're going to zoom in particularly in the Ontario province today. We're also going to cover, I think, federal and tax credit as well. But the main focus is going to be about the Ontario province. If I can walk you through the agenda for today's session. First of all, I'm going to explain to you a bit what is it that we do at helloDarwin. I guess that for most of you on the call, and you're a few hundreds right now, I think that for most of you, you don't necessarily know what we do, so I'm going to explain it a bit. And then Vincent and Samuel are going to walk us through, I think, a few, around 20, 30 different programs.
We lost count. We lost count.
Yeah, so there's a lot of programs in today's agenda, so I'm going to be short. If I explain to you a bit of what we do at helloDarwin. So we've started the business in 2017, and we realized that one of the most underutilized lever for business growth is definitely government funding. Most companies, and we started like we were in this scenario as well, we realized that we were eligible for way more programs than we thought we would, and I think it's a situation in which the system is really clunky. It's really hard to assess, am I eligible for this program, or this specific expense eligible for a set program. So in today's agenda, I think that one of our goals is to go through the different programs that are open or that might be opening really soon. How can you leverage them and capitalize on the revenue you can get from it? Samuel, do you want to explain a bit more of specifically the government funding consulting approach that we have?
For sure. Happy to do so. So I know a lot of you are joining in for the first time and haven't heard about us before. And as Francis was mentioning, the goal of our service is really to help entrepreneurs and businesses optimize their use of government funding and leverage that help, whether it be grants, tax credits, or loans that are out there. And it comes from the fact that a lot of people don't have the knowledge, the time, or the resources to really optimize that. So in the first step, what we want to do is really understand all your investments and where are you looking to grow, expand, and invest in your business for the next 12 to 36 months, to then be able to do a game plan of what grants and other resources you might be eligible for. Have one of our account managers look at what documentation you need to do the underwriting and the application. Have our professionals then all do the grant application, loan, or tax credit for you, submit it and review it with your team. And then we have a client app where you're able to monitor all changes or approvals that you'll be receiving. So the goal really is to offer an as turnkey as possible service to really help you optimize the use of those government resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thanks, Samuel. Just so you guys know, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to reach out in the Q&A section in Zoom. I'm going to be playing the executive assistant of you two, so I'm going to be asking the questions.
We're lucky.
Yeah.
We're overqualified a bit, I feel.
Maybe. And so I'll do so happily. So feel free to reach out in the Q&A section. And after the Zoom, probably today or at least tomorrow, you're going to receive the presentation altogether. And if you want to talk to us to have a specific assessment of your eligibility and potential in terms of incentives, we'd be happy to send you a link to book a call with us. Vincent, you want to start with the federal?
So let's get started with the federal grants. So lots of people ask the question, can we stack grants at the federal and provincial and different levels of government? The answer is yes. So lots of grants can be combined, whether it is true federal grants only or a mixture of federal, provincial, and municipal grants, and also regional grants. Let's not forget about them. So we're going to start with the federal grants, and then Sam is going to go over the Ontario grants and tax credits. And we're also going to do the case studies, as we mentioned. One of the most popular federal grants is CanExport SME. The main goal for CanExport is to subsidize the expenses you'll have to expand your business internationally. So it opens every year, and it's going to subsidize around $50K in expenses per year per business, around 50% of the total expenses that you'll have, up to $50K. And it's going to subsidize expenses such as trade shows, video production, content creation, marketing, legal and accounting advice, or certification you might need to expand your business. So it's a very popular grant. As you can see, it had around 4,500 applications in 2024, and around just 36% of the applications were accepted. That means a very competitive program. So you really need to make sure your documentation is well put. And when they say that something is optional in the request, it is not. It is not. When it's that competitive program, you need to have everything you can to get an acceptance. So we want to maximize that acceptance rate with you. So CanExport SME is a very popular grant. There's also the CanExport Innovation Grant, which is sort of the sister program for CanExport. It's subsidized $75K per business for innovation with international partners. So it's going to help establish those partnerships, establish R&D partnership and innovation. It's a very niche program, so it's going to subsidize around 75% of the expenses. It is a more niche program. It typically is a little less popular, a bit easier to get in. They have a bit more windows of application, so it's a good program to get started if you want to do some R&D or collaborate with international partners.
Mm-hmm. I already have a few questions in the Q&A. It's getting started already. Thank you. Well, first of all, just to closing up on the CanExport, it's one of the most mainstream program that there is, so probably most of you already know about it. Although when I looked about the slide, like the 36% acceptance rate, I think that for today's cohort, this year's cohort, we're at around 60 or 70%, so close to double the acceptance rate average for last year's applicants.
For sure, and something to add about that, it's extremely competitive, but the earlier you apply, the higher your chances of being approved. So if you're ready beforehand and you apply in the first few days, the odds really are on your side. And that's the game with grants really in general. So if you're able to prepare in advance and make sure you deposit it early, the chances of being approved are quite realistic.
And that's that's the reason because our acceptance is at twice the level for CanExport, is because all of our grants requests were started before the program even opened. When you know a certain grant like CanExport is going to open annually, you can get started on your grants request a few months prior, make sure everything's ready, good and ready, and just submit it on the first day. And as you say, it has a lot more chance to get accepted that way.
A few questions regarding the eligibility for CanExport. Minimum 100K in revenue?
And maximum 100 million. Okay. And you have to be a Canadian-based businesses and looking to expand your business. They wanted to target markets that aren't well established right now, so it cannot be more than 10% of your business revenue that's coming from that specific country. They do separate the United States in 4 sections of a country, so if you have 10% of your revenue coming, let's say from New York, you can still expand your business in LA, but that could also mean you could do a trade show in New York to target LA customers. So there's different ways to go about it, but it is typically those criteria are going to make the biggest difference.
A few more questions, but they are regarding our pricing structure. How can you guys, I guess, get started with us? I think we're closing in with this, or do we want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can touch on it right now because people are curious for sure. But we have different levels in which we're able to help businesses. We have a free client app that you can use to identify grants, and then there's a step-by-step guide you can follow to apply for them yourself. We're developing a software. I don't know if we want to talk about it, but that's going to be available in the next few months as well. And we have our turnkey service, as I was mentioning. In terms of pricing, I can't name a price here, and the reason is obvious. Is if you're a 12-man operation or a 5,000-man business, then it's going to be extremely different in terms of needs and how much time we need to invest and how many grants we're applying for. So it's really a variable pricing that's going to be adjusted to every business's needs and objectives.
Good. All right, Vincent, you want to keep on?
So I'm going to keep going. Lots of grants to go through. We talked about CanExport, very popular programs. We're going to talk about NGen, which is more sort of a government stakeholder. So they are a government entity that distributes grants to optimize the manufacturing industry in Canada. Right now, they have a grant that is active until I think you need to apply before August 20. So we're a bit short on time on this one, but there's new grants coming out every 2 or 3 months or so with NGen. 3 months ago, it was an AI for manufacturing grant. This one is just for advanced manufacturing in itself. So they want to optimize the manufacturing industry and help promote just better just processes in the manufacturing industry. So they're going to subsidize the analysis, the machinery purchase, the man hours that you're going to put in, the consultants are going to work on the project. They typically are going to do bigger projects. So it's going to be a subsidies that's going to cover expenses, let's say until January 2028. And they're going to subsidize up to 40% of your expenses, up to 3.2 million of total grants. So it's a very popular grant and a very fun one to have. It's just a tough one to fall into because the way they operate is, let's say today they're going to launch the grant that is expiring in 2 months or 2 or 3 months. So you need to get your documentation ready before then and apply, or else you're just going to have to wait until the next wave comes out. So you need to be prepared on this one.
For sure. And something interesting to add to NGen, they seem like really big amounts, right? And they usually are, but they do enable you to have projects over multiple years. The specific one, I believe, was up to 4 years. Mm-hmm. So if you're spending $500,000 in equipment a year, over 4 years, that's $2 million, right? So obviously the timeline to apply is very short, but then the timeline to get your expenses in is usually very wide.
Exactly. That's a good point. So NGen is for manufacturing Canadian businesses. Another very popular grant right now, very on topic for lots of businesses, is going to be the process for requesting remission of tariffs that apply on certain goods from the U.S. It's a mouthful. It says what it does, what it says it does. It does what it says it does. So it's going to just allow you to recuperate the tariffs that you're paying on the imports of goods from the U.S. You have to be able to explain why it is impossible for you or very difficult for you to get those same materials elsewhere. So for those people that apply, you can just get the tariffs reimbursed altogether. So it's a very popular grant for the people that are impacted by this.
For sure. And everybody that's impacted by tariffs, where there's not a lot of grants that have been announced yet outside of Quebec, most provincial and the federal government have a budget allocated in their budget to help businesses. It's just not clear in what form it's going to be, but you can expect grants or investments, loans, tax credits to be coming up shortly in the next 6 to 12 months to help you fight off the current trade war.
And that's one of the aspects that is also a great value in the monitoring that we're doing in our turnkey solution is that when we know a certain grants just opened up that is fitting your expenses, you'll be alerted right away and we can proactively work on it because it's very hard for business owners and just business managers to be aware of what grant is coming out because government isn't typically a good marketing agency for themselves.
Definitely. We have a team of around 60 people here in Montreal. Around a bit more than half of it is working directly with with business owners, doing those sort of assessment and grant writing, etc. But we also have a team that's dedicated to monitoring the different programs because there's so many and the updates aren't communicated well. So I see the need here.
And for sure, we also invest a ton in AI and having scrapers on almost every government website that we find. So even if our analysts don't see it, usually our AI or our automations will pick up a grant or any tweet or press release that relates to a grant or a loan or anything like that. So we're proactive in making sure there's absolutely no opportunities we're missing.
Moving forward, there's the Low Carbon Economy Fund. I'll do it a bit quickly because a lot of the funds in it are almost completely ran out. There are going to be new envelopes typically are going to be opening soon. So we'll be waiting on it. It's up to $1 million in grants for different expenses that are going to help you lower your greenhouse gas emissions and different other just improvements such as this one. Again, if we move into different grants for industries, the Canadian food innovation. So there's different grants that are going to have specific criteria for you to apply. Let's say some grants want you to just be a Canadian businesses. Some want you to be a Canadian manufacturers. Some of those grants are also going to target the Canadian food industry. The food industry has a lot of grants specifically for them, for food transformation, agriculture, distribution as well. The food innovation government entity has a lot of grants that opens up at different time of the year. You can see a couple of them on the screen right now. Right now, there's the Innovation Booster ending on August 12th. If you have sometime this weekend and you think you can apply, or just call us and we'll see what we can do. But different grants open up every few months. So we can expect also a new wave of grants upcoming in September through November, which is the typical timing for new grants to open.
I have a question in the chat about are we going to talk about non-profit funding? Or is it mostly for-profit companies?
So some of those grants are eligible for nonprofits. Yeah. Let's say the Engine one is eligible for nonprofits, but we specifically targeted grants for-profit companies today. But we are going to be providing, like Sam said, a software over the next few months that is also going to be targeting the nonprofit over the next few months. So we'll be able to help that service a bit more.
Yeah. Good. And I have a few questions regarding some specific expenses, but I think that we're going to cover them shortly with different programs. So I'll wait for that one
after the break.
Yeah.
So in the food industry again, the Canada Pavilion program is a very popular one. If you're going to the trade shows on the bottom right of the screen. Is it bottom right for me or for them as well? At the bottom of the screen, whichever side it is for you guys. So it's going to subsidize your expenses to go to those trade shows, the booth fees, the travel expenses, and all of that. Moving forward, that's a grant that is eligible for every businesses in Canada. So it's the MyTac. It's going to subsidize internships. So there's the MyTac, and the next one I'm going to present as well are for interns. Lots of different grants are going to subsidize interns, and lots of businesses are hiring interns without even knowing about it. That was a surprise to me when I started discussions with government, with business owners that told me about it. But lots of those grants are going to subsidize 50 to 70% of the expenses for an intern, and typically you can do an unlimited amount of requests. So it can very much help with different either dev projects or just manpower or marketing projects. Lots of possibilities there. So I said there was a MyTac. There's also the ICTC, which is $7,000 per intern. So those one is for post-secondary students for work placements in digital economy sectors. The MyTac was more so for master's degrees interns and different more advanced projects. And then we're moving on to Ontario grants. Sam.
Yes. So before we start looking into Ontario grants, the good news I have is I checked this morning. It might have changed, but all the ones we're presenting are currently open. So you can apply for them as soon as we finish the call if you want.
Only asterisks will be can export.
Well, I mean, all the ones in Ontario.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So, no worries. So the first one The first one that's really popular if you're in advanced manufacturing is obviously the Advanced Manufacturing and Innovation Competitive Stream. So it's only for certain sectors like aerospace, chemical, automotive, and more. But they're going to enable you to receive up to $500,000 in funding. Half of it is a loan. The other half of it is a grant, and it's 30% of your total project. This includes capital equipment, technology, skills development, and much more. And then your project can run multiple years on this one as well. One of the criteria, though, it has to create jobs.
I had a question regarding, manufacturing companies in Ontario. So maybe Samuel, you can answer live. Any employment or like grants or subsidies for manufacturing companies, specifically hiring like students or?
Yeah. Well, it really depends on what they're going to be doing. There's a lot of grants. We'll talk about it later. There's a Canada-Ontario job grant for the training part of it. If you're looking to hire interns, Vincent already mentioned a few, but to be fair, there's maybe 50 grants out there for interns. So we're probably able to find something there. Some of the grants that I'm presenting also in manufacturing will enable you to expense the wage expenses of new hires. So there's a lot of different avenues if you're expanding in manufacturing, which includes hiring, that you could be eligible for grants on the salary itself and on the training you're doing.
Good.
And the case study we're doing later is also for a manufacturing food transformation business, so lots of it can apply as well.
That's right.
Perfect. So the next one up we got here, and we're talking about interns, is the Venture for Canada internship. So they'll cover up to 70% of the wages for interns, up to $7,000 per employee. The great thing is you can hire multiple. So once you're approved, you can apply continuously to the program. And I know probably a lot of you have already heard about the apprenticeship tax credit. So I confirmed that they can be stacked together. So you can apply for the grant, and then the rest that's not covered by the grant, you can stack with the tax credit as well. Another popular one is and this is a newer one that's opened in the last few months, is the automotive modernization program. Now, you don't have to be an auto manufacturer to apply for this one. It's more destined for people who are in the supply chain of auto parts principally. So it's up to $150,000 for investments that'll help you be more productive, create jobs, and innovate. And it's a 50% grant, so up to $300 in expenses.
So what does supply chain in the automotive industry mean?
Yes. So the exact criteria that they have is that at least 30% of your sales have to be related to the automotive industry. So it's mainly for part makers, right? If you're providing parts to the automotive industry in Canada, you would be eligible for this grant.
Okay, got it, thanks.
And then the next one we have, and I kind of touched on it a bit before, is the Canada-Ontario Job Grant. So it's up to $10,000 per employee that you can apply for. And what's really interesting, if you're considered a small employer, so less than 100 employees, they'll cover up to 83% of the cost of your training expenses. And then if you're a larger employer, it's still 50%. Up to 10,000 per employee. There's no limit on employees. So if you're having 50 people receiving training, then that's definitely a sizable grant you can apply for. And the list of service providers that are eligible is very vast. It can go from vendors, certified trainers, college, unions, school boards. So if you have outside training expenses, there's a very high chance that this grant would be a fit for you.
And
I was just going to say, sorry, Vincent.
Go ahead.
Again, this is a pretty mainstream program, right? And it's open, I think, at the beginning of summer, or?
It's currently open. I'm not sure if it fluctuates in or out, but yes, it is mainstream. A lot of businesses do apply for it.
Yeah. So again, being prepared, making sure that whenever you're going to be hiring those people, you took that into account, right?
Yeah.
And you prepared the documentations and etc. So
for sure, and this is valid on current employees as well. So it doesn't necessarily need to be new hires. If you already have staff and you just want to invest in helping them be more productive or more competent, this is a fit.
Typically, it would need to be done before the expense is made, though. So one thing that tends to happen is people just want to go about their day and do the training and just not stop every moment to look for a grant. And that's where you need to have someone just working for it and just doing the work alongside from you and just doing the grants request.
Yeah, and that's valid for really every grant. You're going to have to apply for it beforehand. Now, you don't have to wait for the government to answer you. And then this is a rule of thumb, so about 90% of the grants work this way. But what you have to do is apply for the grant, then you can go ahead, sign your purchase order, go do the training, have your expense, and then once you're approved, you send over the receipt and they'll give you the grant. But you really have to apply before it. For tax credits, it's very easy to retrofit. For grants, outside of energy efficiency, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, good point.
Next up, we have the Northern Ontario Heritage Funds. So there's two programs from them that we're going to cover. The first one is Invest North Launch. So if you're a current business and you have a project in investing in Northern Ontario, you can apply for a grant up to $200,000 at 50% of your eligible expenses. And the list of expenses here is what's great, right? Even purchasing and acquiring building would fit into that, upgrading lease space, buying equipment. I think I've mentioned it, but purchasing land. new or used, extremely rare that we see used equipment. So the list of expenses is very large. If you're investing in Norton, Ontario, there's a very good chance that your budget is significantly over this. So this is a realistic $200 too.
And that's something we see a lot in Ontario is there's going to be the federal grants, the Ontario grants, and then the regional Ontario grants that you can apply to. And you can stack all of them together in certain instances.
Exactly, yeah. The goal is every grant's different, but a lot of them will permit you to stack them for sure.
I missed the questions regarding the previous program, COJG, which is, are there specific institutions that provide training that this program supports, or can we get training from any institution?
It's not any institution, so there's a long list of service providers. So they'll support colleges, school boards, unions, but vendors, right? If you're purchasing an ERP and your vendor wants to do training and you want to work with them, that fits. And there's also any private trainer is eligible as long as they're part of a certain certification that the government of Ontario has. If they fit on that, then you can work with anybody you want.
And we should say also that we have a network of accredited providers that work with the government as well, that we could compare service offers for training projects or ERP projects that are going to be eligible to those grants. So it's part of the turnkey solution that Sam was describing is we're going to be matching the grants, but also finding the relevant providers when need be to make sure those expenses are going to fit with the grants as well. So it's all an all-encompassing service.
All right.
Moving forward.
Perfect. The next one, so we talked about if you're launching in Norton, Ontario, but there's also one if you're growing. It's pretty much the same expenses. The difference here is you have 3 different financing options. The first one's a 20% grant on your project up to $400,000, which is pretty good. The second one's a 20% grant and a 30% interest-free loan up to $600,000. And the third one's a 50% loan up to $1 million. Now, why would you want a loan over a grant? I'm not sure on that end. The second option seems to me like a slam dunk, but you can get up to $1 million in funding if you're growing in Norton, Ontario. And what's great with the Norton Ontario Heritage Fund, it's one of the few grant providers that has a lot of information on their website and a lot of case studies. So you can see what other businesses have done, what expenses have been approved, and then kind of match make it to the investments that you're considering. Next up, we've got FedDev Ontario. Now, this one's not a grant, but it's the biggest project. So it's minimum $125,000 that you have to apply for, up to $10 million. And they're willing to finance up to half of your project interest-free. Now, eligible expenses are wages, equipment you're purchasing or leasing, professional fees, software. It's quite vast. The projects, there's no time limit. They do say that on average, they span around 3 years. And this one does not allow land and building expenses compared to the other ones we've covered before. And they also do not allow you to stack it with any other programs. So this is just a clean loan, interest-free, but you cannot enable it with the previous grants we've discussed.
And that's where, before applying to any program, we always recommend doing a comprehensive analysis of all of the grants that are eligible for your business. Because if you were to apply to FedDev and you were to turn around and see that there were 2 or 3 other grants you could have stacked together that would have been a better fit, then you might have just shot yourself in the foot because you just applied directly without doing a comprehensive just analysis of what's out there for you. So it's always about understanding the little fine print in those documents as well.
For sure. That's a great point, right? If I were to tell anybody, hey, you want a $2 million interest-free loan, you'd probably say yes. But if it means missing out on $1.2 million in grants or something like that,
let's say,
exactly. Then, so for sure, usually the goal is to apply for grants first. If it fails, then we're still in an interest-free loan, which is pretty much a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
And also that's the reason why we're so integrated with our clients, right? When we have to see what's coming, what types of projects are they going to undergo, and therefore that's the consulting approach is really on the long term.
And that's why the consultants, every account managers at helloDarwin are going to do reoccurring meetings with their contacts at your business, that they're going to do typically a touch point every 4 to 6 weeks or something like that to understand what are the upcoming expenses and understand what is going on in your business so we can align those priorities and expenses to the grants active right now.
For sure. And then just to get on a bit deeper on this, if you have a project that's in the millions of dollars in expansion, productivity, and innovation, and as I've mentioned before, it doesn't have to be over 1 year. Usually it's over 3 or 4 years. What's likely going to happen is we're going to have a plan A, B, C for your grants, right? Where, okay, this one's a shining bright star. We want to apply for it. It's the golden goose. It's a bit harder, but it would grant half of your project. And then if we're rejected, we'll fall back on these two. And then if we're rejected, we might fall back on FedDev. So it's really to look at the options and then classify them as the most interesting and then go through there. And if we get a rejection, we still have something to fall back on.
I have a question regarding, is FedDev open now?
Yes.
It's open? Yeah.
It's currently open. All the ones in the Ontario section of the PowerPoint, unless it's changed from 8 a.m. this morning, are all currently open.
And it can change from 8 a.m. this morning.
It is possible.
Right now. So that's where the asterisk comes in. And those grants typically are going to have some expiration date that either comes first. Okay, it's either that or whenever the funds run out, and it's whichever comes first. So you typically need to apply as soon as possible to those grants program.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A mistake we hear from business owners often is they'll say, well, the grant said it was open until February and we were in the summer, so I didn't think about applying for it. But what happens is if it's interesting for you, it's probably interesting for a lot of businesses across the country or the province. So usually it's as soon as funds run out as well. We've seen it multiple times where a grant opens and within a week it's closed. Even in extreme case, we had a very popular grant here in the food transformation that we did that closed in 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it's really important to get on the application as soon as possible if it's a sizable and very interesting grants. If we're looking at the grants for interns, no rush on that end, right? They're likely to stay open.
Another question mainly regarded the different industry that we're talking about. We're mentioning manufacturing and construction company.
Yeah.
What about other type of businesses, let's say more traditional or?
Yeah, there's grants for really every single sector. Some sectors are obviously more prioritized by the government than others. FedDev is quite large, though. It's not just for manufacturers. We applied, or we were looking with a business that has kind of a snow plowing service that they're looking to sign an airport, and it's a $6 million capex for them. So this would have been a fit potentially, and we're looking to whether applying or looking at other programs. So there's a lot of grants out there. Regardless of the sector that you're in, there's probably opportunities. Of course, food transformation and manufacturing, since they usually have sizable investments, are prioritized by the government. But we've worked with retail stores, R&D labs, really a large variety
services,
of
retail
for sure.
Well. I'd say it's mostly linked also to the expenses that the business is going to have, because yes, some sectors are prioritized as well, but the Canadian government wants businesses to be more optimized, to grow, to just be more efficient, and also help with the workforce employment and all of those things. So there's going to be subsidies for all of the expenses a business can have that's going to lead them to those things. Let's say some retailers are going to have grants for renovations to make it more optimized for, let's say, handicapped people, or grants to relocate in a specific part of their town. There's different grants that are, let's say, for this avenue that wants to revitalize in your county. So different grants are going to be eligible, but it's very much based on the expenses that you plan. So that's why we always start with just a detailed analysis of what is it that you plan on doing this year and the upcoming years, to do a mapping of what's available for those expenses.
Yeah, and most of the HR grants for hiring and training that we've talked about today are available industry-wide, or with a few exceptions. And from what I know, almost every business has employees, so probably everybody's eligible for something in that basket.
Absolutely.
Good. All right, moving on.
Okay, so after FedDev?
Yeah, after FedDev, we have the Southwestern Ontario Development Fund. So this is up to $1.5 million that you can get in funding to grow your business, improve productivity, pursue new markets. And the great news in this one, again, is machinery is an eligible expenses, and wages that you're working on this project are also eligible. It's the same thing, I think, as the one as I mentioned a few slides ago. It's a 15% grant and a 15% interest-free loan. Very popular model from Invest Ontario to combine loans and grants within the same program. And in this case, you can have a project that's up to 4 years in terms of time and fits into up to 5 fiscal years. So there's a really long time period to plan this project. So a lot of businesses usually feel like because they're investing maybe $250,000 a year in growth or in machinery, it doesn't fit into these programs. But really, if it's $1 million investment over 4 years, so it easily would fit in a program like this.
It's just a way of breaking it down and packaging it. Yeah,
for sure.
Totally. So, and this is available for multiple industries?
Yeah, so across a variety of industries. Obviously, these are large amounts. When you're in manufacturing and you probably purchase machinery, you're getting there a lot quicker. But it is available in a variety of industries.
Interesting.
So moving on, let's talk about a few key tax credits that there's out there. And before we talk about it, there's a ton of tax credits in Ontario, more than 20 that I could count. So there's 4 in this slide that are going to be the most popular ones. But that doesn't mean stop your research at this, right? There's significantly more out there. And then the main difference that I want to talk about, tax credits and grants. Grants, we always say you need to plan ahead, right? Really apply for the grant before going forward with your expenses. It's the complete other way around with tax credits. You want to do the expense and then apply for the tax credit. So the main one that a lot of people know, especially if you're doing research and development, is SHRED. It's up to 35% tax credit on the labor fees, up to 80% of the subcontractor fees. So 80% of the expense would be credited up to 35%. Businesses who do a lot of R&D are probably already doing this. If you're investing a lot in R&D and you're not, please make sure to contact us. We'll tell you what eligible expenses you have. Usually this is 6 figures returns if you're looking into it. And then this also includes all the materials that you're using and transforming to do this research and development. And a potential, in some cases, they'll also enable part of your overhead costs.
Mm-hmm. It's a very big program. And one thing to say also is if you're looking to do your first application is they've started auditing systematically every first request for SHRED tax credits. So it's a reason more to make it so that your request is rock solid and that you have all the documentation needed, whether it is with helloDarwin or just very much doing your homework. That's going to be very important because they're going to do a systematic audit of your SHRED application.
Exactly. Even though it's mainstream, it still needs to be worked appropriately, right? Mm-hmm. There's the whole lexicon regarding, is it innovation? Am I innovating or just integrating technologies in my business? Mm-hmm. We have experts in-house that can help the developing or the innovation team of our clients. But this collaboration is really important.
For sure. We have accountants who've been doing it for decades because SHRED's been around for a long time. But it's, as Vincent was mentioning, you're very likely to get audited. Even if it's not your first time, most clients get audited. And it's a very rigorous process in terms of tax credit writing. So it's a lot more time to invest than typical grants. But if you have large investments in R&D, I really can't state this enough. The ROI is extremely high. And I also made sure to confirm this with a tax specialist, but you can stack it with the Ontario Innovation Tax Credit. So it becomes really interesting. If you're already doing that grant, you're probably doing most of the work for SHRED. So it just becomes a great way to do a 2-for-1.
But again, the strategy of stacking those two is really, really important because once you get SHRED, you might reduce the...
You're going to reduce the expense.
So there's an optimization to be done here.
For sure. And then next one, we have the Ontario Made Manufacturing Tax Credit. If you're in manufacturing, you have to be applying for this one, basically. It's 10% of project costs for investments in buildings or machinery/equipment. Up to $2 million a year you can apply for. Obviously, to get $2 million, since it's a 10% tax credit, you need to get $20 million in expenses. But what's really interesting in this one is you can stack it with almost any loan or any grant. So if you have $1 million project, you're getting $500,000 in grants. Well, the other $500,000 would be eligible for this 10%. So it's an extra $50K on top of the grant that you'd receive in this hypothetical scenario.
And it's funny because it's not as popular as you'd think. Pretty much every manufacturer I've met so far in Ontario has told me, well, typically you have the business owner that just doesn't know what tax credits they're doing. So that's fair. Mm-hmm. But even once it gets to the fiscal, there's not it doesn't seem to be as implemented as, let's say, SHRED or other.
It's pretty much separated from the accounting, sector of a business.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity that a lot of people are missing out on, basically because of how, to be fair, this is a pretty easy one to obtain, and how a lot of people are kind of just skipping it over, and it fits all your expenses. Even if you've missed out on it, this is one you can retrofit, so we can go back in the past. I also want to add, for it to be eligible, it can't just be replacing a machinery that you had that's broken. It needs to either make you more competitive, innovate, or help you lower your costs.
And then, lower your cost could be just a new equipment that just produces more but is more efficient.
Exactly.
For sure.
It's pretty achievable, right?
Exactly. It's
Buying new machinery, probably the reason is because
all of those
more
reasons.
productive.
Yeah, usually when you buy something, you want it to make it be better, faster, or cheaper, right? So if any way it optimizes your processes, it would be eligible. Just the renewal of old equipment every 5 years when you'd be purchasing the same thing would not be qualified. That's just the little asterisk there. So next up, we have the Ontario Interactive Digital Media Tax Credit. So this is if you're making video games, creating apps, really innovating in that space. It's up to 40% of the salaries that you can apply for. It's very large. Now, this is another one that can't be stacked, though. So you cannot stack it with Shred or other ones. It even includes your marketing and distribution expenses. Those are capped at $100,000 a year, but if you're investing in growing your presence on $100K, that's $40K you're getting back. So this is another one that I think is very popular. If you're in the interactive and digital space, the odds are that you know about it, but it definitely is worth the investment of having somebody looking at it to just make sure that all your expenses are optimized and you're getting the full help that you're eligible to receive. Someone
in the Q&A asked about the tax credit. Are these continuously intaking like new applicants, or is it specific dates? Or
so no, tax credits are continuously open. What most businesses will do is they'll apply for them while they're doing their tax reports, right? That being said, you can apply for them at any time. They're continuously open, and they're one of the rare things that you can retrofit. So if you missed out on it when you were doing your tax reports a few months ago, that's perfect. You can do an adjustment and work back to it. And the reason is that these are continuously open. Usually a grant has a set budget, right? They'll have a budget of $250 million, $25 million, and they're going to liquidate that. This is a tax credit. So it's money that you're just giving less to the government. So it's not taking away from a budget that's set. Usually tax credits will say they're going to be there from 2022 to 2027. So they have a time period that you're eligible for, but there's a continuous intake.
I had a question also regarding the, is there any support for SMEs that are creating IPs for internal use, IPs, intellectual property?
That could fit into Shred potentially. Then if you're hiring interns or you're hiring anybody to work in R&D, innovation, that has a very specific education, there could be that. And it's depending also what the IP you're using. The low carbon fund that Vincent talked about earlier does have a few grants that are open, one of the few that are open to hire people to work on innovation that would reduce your carbon footprint. So it depends on what IPs you're working, but there's probably some help out there.
Yeah, lots of IP expenses are also linked to other grants. It's also like one of the expenses linked into that. I know there's one of the federal grants that is available for that. I think it was linked also in CanExport, some of those expenses. So different ways to go about it for sure.
And another question regarding the grants for new grad hires. We covered that already, right? It's like we had a few HR grants already.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a few dozen ones available for sure.
Yeah.
Typically, it's going to be depending on what is it they're going to do, what level of studies they have, and then we're going to decide which grant would be the best fit.
Someone is also joining in and saying that this particular grant that we're looking at is a very long time, and the reviewers I have encountered are incompetent as they don't understand accounting. Something, can you maybe comment on that? Like, how do you need to be speaking to those entities while you're applying?
Yeah, I want to try to stay politically correct, but I'm not going to testify on their competency. But there is a truth to the fact that the people who work for the government don't always understand the business realities. And I wouldn't say I disagree with your point, but yes, there is a specific language that you want, and there is a ton of reviewers. If you're applying for the interactive digital media tax credit or SHRED, the odds of getting audited are very high, and they're very rigorous on the wording and everything like that.
Yeah.
So to have a professional that's going to help you manage that, I think can save a headache and save some expenses that would be cut when you're getting an audit.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say they're looking for specific words, and they're looking for a specific way of going about doing your tax credits or grants requests. And it's that I feel like that statement is true with every grant or government entity there is. They want it to be a certain way. So that's why you need to understand what's the pattern that they're looking for and what are the objectives and priorities you're trying to respond to. So that's why when helloDarwin comes in and we've been doing, let's say, a Can Export grant hundreds of times, it's easy for us to understand what are the application that they're looking for and what are the phrasing that they're looking for. So it's a very important part in it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I have a question. Will helloDarwin be able to identify all the applicable grants or tax credits a company is eligible for? What process is involved? I know that we're having like a section at the end, but maybe we want to jump in.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be happy to. We'll be able to identify every single tax credit and grant in a 15-minute call, maybe not, but over the time that we work together, we should be able to identify pretty much everything. If we miss one, it would be a mistake. But for most of our clients, we maximize every opportunity. It's not necessarily of identifying which grants that you'd be eligible for, tax credits. That's really an issue. The more value in our service would be identifying how do we stack them, which ones do we apply first, and what's the strategic approach to have for your investments. But if you want to know specifically what grants that you could be eligible for your expenses, feel free to reach out with us, book a call with me, Vincent, text us on LinkedIn. Regardless, we'll be happy to work with you and look at the potential and see what would be a fit for your business.
And again, at the end, I think that we have like a closing slide with like the different, if you already know us, maybe just contact us again. If you don't, wait for the email. So there's the path that's coming. Good. Moving on.
Perfect. Moving on, the Clean Technology Investment Grant. Now, this is for any businesses that would be looking to reduce their footprint through solar, electricity storage, geothermal. So it really has to be innovation in clean technology. So heat pumps wouldn't be eligible, changing your doors and windows. It's something that's quite pushed. It's usually for bigger investments, and it's up to 30% of the tax credit. So it can be a very significant amount. And the great news is it can be stacked with almost anything. So if you have a green transition loan or a grant, you'd be eligible to stack this as well. There's no restrictions on that one.
So it's my turn.
Yes.
So we wanted to give an example of funded projects that could be eligible. One of the main ones that we would have is, let's say, a manufacturing company or a food transformation company is looking to improve their production line. Let's say they want to increase their services and their products, so they need to expand the production line, do some productivity improvements, do some business expansion then afterwards. And as Samuel said, typically those projects are gonna go over a year, 2, 3, 4 years, and pretty long time periods. But the grants can all be applied to in a specific window. So let's say planned expenses for those projects would be studies, analysis, machinery purchase, process optimization, R&D, innovation, employee training, trade shows. And we wanted to do a breakdown of the grants that are eligible for those said expenses. And then again, the specific grants that you need to apply to are going to vary depending on the time period that you're doing those grants requests in, the specific industry you're in, and also if you're, let's say, in a specific region, maybe different grants are going to apply. So if we're moving on to which grant at which expenses and what time, let's say studies and analysis, all of those expenses could fall in grants like FedDev, Food Innovation Canada, as we discussed earlier, or SHRED. SHRED is going to cover a lot of expenses, but as we said, it's a very complicated one. It can be stacked, but it's difficult to stack as well. So is it the best one to start with? There's also, let's say, Can Export Innovation that you could do for the innovation and SHRED and R&D part of it. Machinery purchase, as Sam discussed, there's lots of grants, tax credits, incentives that you can go for. So let's say OMM ITC, the Ontario Made Manufacturing tax credit, and the FedDev that could apply. NGen as well would be one of the, like we said, let's say a golden goose or plan A type of situation. And if it doesn't work, you can combine different grants at the same time. And business expansion, can export SMB, remission of tariffs. So it's a very broad picture of the grants that are eligible for a specific project. But typically, once you have an account manager at helloDarwin, their job is to work on the project that you tell us that you want to work on, but also the account manager is going to know what other grants that your business is eligible to, because they're working with a number of other businesses in your industry. So they understand what are your expenses, what are your the sort of objectives and challenges that you have, and what grants can respond to those as well. So it's a matter of getting to know each other. As Sam said earlier, we can identify a lot of grants for your business, but mapping the right ones is going to take some time and some getting to know each other. And that's why we do it through a dedicated service with an account manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I can add on to the screen that you're seeing right now, these are very general grants, right? Mm-hmm. On our platform, there's over 3,000 of them that we've identified. So the game plan we would have for your projects and business would be completely different than what we're showing. Just to give you a broad example, and then, that being said, I think like we've said multiple times, the real value is identifying the specific grants for your project and your industry and seeing how they're a fit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's always every snowflake is different, so we need to make it fit.
We'll make that a saying.
All right, so I think that we're already closing in at on the end of this webinar. We've had tons of questions, tons of participation. Thanks a lot, everyone. Now would be a good time, in my opinion, because lots of those questions were about our fee structure. Mm-hmm. How do you get started with helloDarwin? How can I make sure that this specific expense would be eligible for something? Maybe you guys could talk about that just for a bit.
Yeah. So, the slide kind of explains it, right? If you're already working with us as a client, or you're working with an account manager to see the grants that you could be eligible for, then, feel free to reach out to whoever you're already talking to. They know your case the best. And then if you're not working with anyone, this is the first time you're hearing about us. I think that's the case for a lot of people. Then you can reach out to us via email. We'll be happy to connect you with someone like me or Vincent. We'll do a call with you and look at your projects and tell you what you could be eligible for. See if we'd be a fit to work together. You can reach out to us via LinkedIn as well. Or is there any other?
I'd say the first step is to just get to know your business on an exploration call and understand, are you eligible to grants? Because some businesses are just flat out not eligible to grants just because they don't have the required expenses right now, or it just isn't the right timing, or maybe they just haven't said the right project that they have in mind. So it's a matter of discussing what are the expenses and priorities, and understanding, do a first mapping of the grants. And that's what you typically do with a first call with Sam and I, is to just present your projects and priorities. And we're going to say, so we think there's potential in this area or this area, and go from there. Because it's always a getting to know each other type of period where we want to know what is it that you plan on doing and how can we collaborate on it. So feel free to reach out directly on LinkedIn. Also, Samuel's also posting a lot of grants and keeping you up to date. So feel free to add it there. But we'll send you an email with the link to the recording of the video, as well as different ways to get in touch with us.
Yeah, I just want to add to it. We've had a few questions regarding, is it free to get the assessment? Is it free to get started and have this specific call that you mentioned? Yes, it is. Right. So after the webinar, you'll receive the recording of the session. So if you want to rewatch it or send it to someone else, you will. But also the link to get started with us if you want to get that assessment.
And you can just log on to the client app on helloDarwin. On the helloDarwin website, top right, you should see the way to log into the client app. You can access our database of grants, get to know it a bit better, and get in touch with us to get a more personalized approach.
Yeah, I think any business, right, is probably eligible for something. Whether it's significant or not is going to vary a lot on your investments. But even if we're not a fit to work together now, we have a ton of resources to help you, like the client app that Vincent was mentioning. We have a mailing list that we send updates monthly on the grants that are opening. Our LinkedIn keeps you up to date as well. We post a lot of content content on YouTube, or we try to at the very least to keep you informed. So even if you book a call with us, we find a few grants and it's not a fit, we'll have a ton of free resources to help you still optimize the funding that you can receive.
Well put.
That sums it up. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for spending the time with us, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.